One love, dear family. Wholeness and balance to you. Jesse here. Just want to reach out to the all today and have a conversation about how we can benefit ourselves and the collective and the earth itself. Going to have my brother Jerome joining me, and we're going to talk a little bit about breatharian healing as well as sort of matters of spirit and this collective need. Hey there, Jerome. See you, brother. I think you have to send me a request to join. I'm here in my cob cottage. Built this cottage with my own two hands out of mud for about $900. Let's see. I think I see him there. There he goes. Beautiful.
Beautiful. I love when you say that.
What a great way to start. Some healing tones and vibrations. How you doing today, my brother?
Man.
Good to see you.
Doing wonderful. Feeling electric, wholeness, great vibrations. It's a wonderful day. The sun's been beaming and we're live streaming. You know what I'm saying? I love this. Thank you. Thank you for having me on here, Jesse.
My pleasure, Jerome. I appreciate your heart and spirit. Been seeing, we've been connected loosely through social media for some years, but I love seeing your journey and just this whole, unfolding that we're all going through together. So thank you for joining me once again. I appreciate, love you. And I saw you out there at the Pranic retreat in Sedona, and it just gave me great joy to connect with other pranic practitioners and develop sort of this community vibration, and healing understanding that is just so beautiful to know that as Eliton puts it, the universe is user friendly,
right?
That we're supported by the life force and life energy. Right. So yeah, it looks like it was a great time, and I hope to join you out here one day for one of those.
Yeah, because whereabouts are you? I know you're mountain time, so you can't be too far away.
Yeah, I'm in New Mexico, in northern New Mexico.
Okay, we passed through Las Cruces. Las Cruces, right? That's in New Mexico?
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, so we came through there. That's awesome. So you're not that far away at all. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty close to Sedona. My lifestyle, being a homesteader, gardener, and father, doesn't always allow me to, steal away as often as I would like. But
of course.
One of these days, I'd love to meet you in person and give you a hug.
It's gonna happen. Yes.
Yes, guy. Yeah. So yeah, kind of what I wanted to talk about today. Obviously the prana journey, because that's on both of our hearts and an inspiration for us, but kind of in the context of there's so much going on in the world right now in terms of trauma, I would say, like right here in New Mexico right now, we're experiencing the worst forest fire in New Mexico history.
Wow, I didn't know that. Wow.
Hundreds of thousands of acres are burning. And, something I see with this pranic lifestyle, I don't know, someone made a comment on one of the breatharian pages that I follow on Facebook today. And they were saying something to the effect of, it seems to me all these breatharian practitioners are very self-absorbed, and that it's kind of a cult of personality sort of a situation. And I think that's misconstrued. Most of us are out here sharing our journey and this and educating and trying to raise the vibration and raise awareness about healing. But I was talking with my friend this morning about humanity, you know, and how there's this metaphor with the butterfly that, you know, the caterpillar first goes through the garden, destroying everything in its path, eating, you know, and then it goes into a chrysalis and it melts its body to arise. And then the body of that being completely morphologically changes and it becomes a butterfly and goes through the garden pollinating and creating benefit, for nothing but benefit and beauty, you know. And I feel like this is a big part of the breatharian path that's kind of overlooked oftentimes, you know, that but it is this thing of like, when we heal ourselves, like you were having a really conversation with that lady, I didn't catch her name, but she was talking about when we do this healing work on ourselves, when we meditate, when we take on these practices, sexual temperance, you know, getting out in the sun, connecting with the earth, that we're like these imaginal cells that are starting to awaken and transform. And Ellie Tom spoke some years ago to me and said, you know, I think breatharianism is going to become, you know, as wildly popular as veganism is now, because this is really our true nature and the true nature of healing, that the universe is electric and that our bodies are electric, and this process and these practices are available to everyone for greater growth and development of the one, but then also the one in the sense of the all, you know. So just want to, you know, you have great perspectives and a very kind heart, and I appreciate that about you. So just wanted to jive with you about all that.
Thank you. I received that. You know, I appreciate that, and I'm glad that you see me that way. You know, because there's been many versions of myself throughout the years, and I'm sure for yourself as well. So it's always appreciative and gracious when you can get feedback like that and know that, wow, you've come a long way, you know, and still have yet to go.
Yeah, right. The evolution is always unfolding, you know, and we're all just growing into our greatest potential, even when we're messing up, you know. So, but, you know, on more of a higher note, like it, you know, the thing I see about this lifetime is, I mean, this lifestyle is just a lifestyle of freedom and joy, you know, and health. And so I'm just curious about, you know, your experience and your process and how it's been for you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's been a wild ride, Jesse, you know? I mean, and we're still going, you know? It's like a roller coaster sometimes. It comes in waves. We go up, we go down, we go in, we go out, you know? And
Yeah.
it's never been a really like a steady climb. It's always been sort of adjustments, kind of like a course correction. I remember reading this book that talked about, you know, when a rocket ship takes off, or even during a plane navigation, that they're always correcting just by small degrees. They're making a course correction all the time. So it's never like they're always going towards the target. They're always course correcting and making those little micro adjustments. So yeah, each thing that we do is like another micro adjustment that we make on our path. And I like thinking that it almost puts you in another timeline. So when you're talking about, you know, these choices and these decisions that we make with any lifestyle that we live, it's just another experience. It's a way to experience life in a new way. And what I like about breatharianism, liquidarian, and even just pranic living, for me, exactly what you said about freedom. And also it's the understand that you have the choice, you know, the choice to choose how you would like to live. And at the core, it's a health message. So that's really bringing people together and understanding that it's about unity and less separation. And also, just like Ellie Tom and Jasmine Heen said years and years ago, that this is something that is definitely for the future. It's definitely something that is growing constantly, you know, like a seed that's been planted, and it's not going back, it's going forward. And the way I feel about it now is that what resonates most often is not necessarily that it's something new, but more that it's something natural, something that we're almost remembering, like that we've forgotten somehow, but we're remembering, we're coming back to it. So yeah, I just enjoy this journey, and I enjoy these conversations that we're having with so many of us. You know?
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's just it. I mean, you know, I feel like on the one hand, having this community, you know, evolve, and you know, as you're saying, this is a very natural thing. I said some people making some comments. They were asking chronic living, and it's like, no, prana. So maybe we should talk a little bit about prana and what were you know, talking about? Essentially, you know, what it is that the universe is electric. You know, everything in the universe is electric. You know, radiative and electric. You know, and there's like these different forces: the magnetic, the radiative, and the electric. And your cells, your mitochondria, run on energy and electricity. And so, what has been the case is that, you know, through inculcation, through the society, through, you know, your families and what have you, we've really collectively relied on food as our main energy source. And a lot of that food has been toxic food, you know, unhealthy food, unnatural food, you know, and that also our practices of you know, of thought, of breath, of, you know, sex, of so many ways in which we deplete our energy through overconsumption, through lack of temperance, through you know, lesser habits, I'll say, you know. And it's really like, that was something that person had mentioned earlier about this, you know, people, breatharians being sort of self-absorbed and feeling sort of superior, and that's not at all where I'm coming from, or I think, you know, many of us are coming from. It's much more that there's low habits and there's high habits, and it really just affects the individual and their experience. And when you bring this electricity in your body through various practices, like I was saying, meditation, you know, and breath work, sexual temperance, eating foods that are natural, raw foods, biophotonic, you know, energetic foods, through fasting, because even if you're eating good foods, this leads to a toxic accumulation in the cells, and then they don't function at their highest electricity, you know. And so, you know, and people that move into higher, you know, health habits and practices, universally feel like, you know, a profound difference in their life, and how enjoyable their life is. So, you know, I just, you know, love this vibration of chasing health, and then your body will kind of pull you towards greater energetic states and happier states, you know. And that's our true essence, is love and joy, that the heart is actually our greatest, it's the first organ that forms, and it's also the emanation point of this electromagnetic field, you know, that organizes all our other organs in our brain. And we've been taught to value, you know, the mind, but the mind is kind of judging, you know, good, bad. To me, come back into being a heartbeat, you know. So I don't know if you want to riff on that at all, but you know,
You cut out that's it. What was the last thing you said? It cut out.
I said, to me, this practice is like the realization of us as being a heart being, you know, primarily, That's our true nature is love. That compassion is a compass that guides you. Like you're saying, this course correction. Once you develop it for yourself by giving yourself these higher habits, then it also develops compassion for other people and animals and plants and nature itself. So, yeah, it's a beautiful process. It's a beautiful life, and
I agree.
I just love.
Yeah, I agree. So out of the head space and into the heart space, you know? Yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah.
100%. So, and that's our confidence too. Like, just that knowing that comes from the heart versus the questioning that can come from the mind.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So how long have you been, like, I mean, how did this start for you?
Yeah.
I want to ask.
It's ironic because it started with questions too, but it also did start from the heart space, not all of it from the head space, because it did come from a place of pain, from being disgruntled, from being dissatisfied, from being unfulfilled with how my life was at that time. And that was back in 2019. And from being unfulfilled and having that, what felt like back then a hole in my heart, a void that I didn't know how to fill, and it wasn't being filled with my rate of consumption. I yearned for something new, something different, something else. And that's when I started to get into my headspace of, well, what else could I do here? What am I missing here? And when you're in those lower vibrational states, the lack, the scarcity, those types of lower frequencies of fear, of not feeling like you're enough, of stress. And I know you yourself as well, when you talked about being in your younger years dealing with depression, dealing with all those things that we deal with. I didn't have any answers, but they do say that questions are the answer. And when you start different questions, you start getting different answers. So, like, I guess my own type of philosophical journey, I started asking those questions. And when I got myself around a different environment, which was very key, as you know, when you're in a different energetic environment around different people who do different things, who look at life differently, who have a different perspective, their energy starts to rub off on you, and they start to imprint on you, and they start to make impressions, and then you start to make impressions, and then you start to impress yourself about what else is there. And I started to search online when they told me, do you know that there are people, who don't eat? The monk in the monastery that I was staying at, the meditation center, the Barwa, it was about impermanence, nature, why we suffer. And there were Burmese monks and nuns there who were teaching meditation and having people come to their monastery. And so I was one of the only American, folks who was there. Most of them were from Myanmar, were from over there in Burma. And when they told me about the head monk, Sayadaw, who had been on a liquid lifestyle for at least 2 years at the time, I wanted to investigate further. And so I told myself I was just going to do 1 month, a solid food vacation, just 1 month. And that 1 month turned into 3 months, because at the time it felt so good. I had gotten to such a level of detox, and I had had more energy. I was sleeping less. I had, all these things falling off of me, all these energetic cords just leaving me. And I totally surrendered. And it was abundance. It was like the feeling of abundance. And when I was out, I was feeding off that energy. Like, I remember you talking about sun gazing. That became one of my new forms of nourishment. So developing this relationship with the sun that I never had, developing this relationship with trees and plants, all this greenery and the scenery that I have never had that kind of relationship, and even more deeper relationship and connection with my own body, with my own breath, and with my own being. So it started to get emotional. There were times where I came to tears because I had spent years in that low frequency, never even knowing that there was more. When you're in a state for so long, it becomes your normal, and you don't perceive or conceive that there could be more because you haven't experienced that. So when you were talking about as well, Jesse, about, you know, the Taco Bell and even, you know, not even the consumption, because I had the same with Taco Bell and Popeyes and rotisserie chickens and hot wings and Wingstop and all those things, but also just the ideologies of being in church. You know, I was raised in the church. I was raised here. I was raised there. I was raised understanding the things that were placed on me, you know, and just taking things as I was taught, you know, taking people at their word, not really going and doing my own investigation, and not really even going and meditating and doing my inner investigation to become an inner guide, you know, become to listen to that inner voice that had always been there, but it had become a whisper. It wasn't loud enough for me to really hear it, but I didn't know how to listen. So these were really just the beginnings. And at the end of that year, 2019, is when I first met Elitom. And that was a manifestation on its own. And the rest took off from there. We're still growing. We're still going. Yeah.
Ah, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I mean, there's so
Yeah.
many correlations with my own experience. So, you know, of being, you know, I've always been seeking a juicy life and, you know, fulfillment. And, you know, as a kid, all this comes naturally. I mean, how many of us can say, you know, that, yeah, when I was a kid, I used to play with my friends all day and we'd forget all about eating, you know, because we were too busy outside under the sun, having fun, you know,
Exactly.
connected. There's not these judgments and these competitions and things that, you know, come in through sort of the root chakra social um, ways, you know, and that most of the way people seek their fulfillment is, you know, to eat stuff, to watch TV, to, you know, have these external stimulations and lose sort of their connection with their, I think the inner child is the higher self, actually, you know.
You got it.
If we, as we grow into adults, if we can, you know, youth is a condition of the heart. If we could stay in the heart and in that fun and that frequency that children are in, where like you just run up on the, you know, uh, playground, and you're like, hey man, what's up? You want to play a game? You know, and then you just off, you know. And there's not none of the like sort of like mental filters and stuff that we'll put ourselves through as adults, you know. And to me, there's like this whole process is like moving back into that like childlike state of wonder, you know, of joy and of friendliness, you know, um, and that, you know, we have so much potential as human beings, but that inner child always has to be tended to. It always has to be loved and nurtured and listened to. And, you know, as adults, we go, I got to go to work, you know, and, or, you know, whatever. And you don't listen to what your guidance is telling you. And your higher self is just as smart as my higher self. It's as smart as anyone's higher self. But we have to be in that place. And through, so these practices, I had that same, you know, sensation where, you know, as a young, you know, man, you know, going off to college and stuff, and, you know, just doing kind of the regular thing, you know, I explored with vision plants and things like that. Those all started to open me up, you know, to, you know, this consciousness. You know, plants have been an amazing guide the whole time, but, you know, still having, you know, poor habits and going into depression, not realizing how important the microbiome was, how important, you know, connecting in and listening to my own heart's wishes was, you know, not knowing really how to feed myself, because that's not really taught, you know. You're just taught to go to the thing, like if you're feeling bad, go get some ice cream, or, you know, whatever, you emulate what your parents did, you know. And so I similarly went to a monastery for a while. I went to Bodhimanda Zen Center in the Himalayas Mountains. And I remember just sitting in samadhi and being like, I just want to stay here.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You know, and knowing I had other wishes too, wanted to have a family, wanted to explore the world, and, you know, stuff, so that at that time, I could have gone the way of monasticism, but that wasn't my course, and yeah, once I started making transformations like about 12 years ago, actually more, it was like 10 years ago. I started sun gazing again, after I ran into HRM. Do you know him?
Mm-hmm. I remember
The,
watching. There was something I saw with him. What was it? Eat the Sun. Eat the Sun. I was watching. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So that kind of turned me on. I got into meditating again, and then my dear good wife and my friend Andrea turned me on to this book about raw foods, with this Russian family who had, had all these diseases, and they got turned on to raw, and then they hiked the Pacific Crest Trail eating wild and raw the whole time.
Wow.
And they, had this whole transformative experience and totally, you know, uh, changed their health and their patterns. And where you could just see that they were smiling and beaming and strong. And so I started exploring with that, and I would eat a meal and I would get like high, I'd be like, oh, this is great. And I'd be like giggling and laughing. And, just as, as time went on and I learned about breatharianism, I was just pulled to it. It was like something that really like magnetized me. And seeing, it's this whole thing of, if we can free the root, we've been all kind of confined to our root chakra survival, and when you open up the belly through fasting and through having more enzymes and water and stuff, and you're, meditating, so that's dropping down through the vagus nerve, into that rest and digest. And, you start to feel this liberation coming on, and you can actually move into your higher chakra centers, because, or, this or that, you're just in the moment and enjoying the joy of it. So yeah, it's just amazing to see how this correlates with my other brothers and sisters on the path, how, it's this unfolding that just starts. It's like you open up the door and then it just starts flooding in more and more. And God bless.
Yeah.
So,
And shout out, and thank you for sharing that, because you're so right. I agree with you. And just really quick, I wanted to shout out, we have some wonderful folks, some loving soul
yeah,
family that are joining us.
see.
I saw that the other day you were with Axel, Plant-Based Leo. Shout out to Axel. Shout out to
Yeah,
Francesca from CC Italy. Definitely, if you haven't done an interview with Francesca, you should. And Janet as well. I know that would be an awesome one as well. Two wonderful light beings over here. So thank you.
yes, thank you for bringing that up. And I know Francesca just through a little bit through social media, but I'd love to have a talk with you also, Francesca. It's about developing this community and the confidence in ourselves and in our community and this life way. I like, Napoleon Hill's, what you can believe, conceive and believe you can achieve.
Mm.
So I think, I really believe this actually stems to our ancient past. I think we were the pyramid builders, and that there's pyramids all across the planet. In Guatemala, there's, speaking of plant-based Leo, he's kind of, people of the sun, that there were cities, temple cities with megalithic, structures the size of Los Angeles, they found now. There's, the Kemet, our African brothers like yourself, but also Japan, and Greece, off the coast, someone built these structures all over the planet. And the way I understand it, in our past, we were more pranic, and it goes into astrology, that the Kali Yuga was us going farther away from the galactic center, and 2012 was us turning the corner and coming back closer to the galactic sun. And similarly to the way the sun can feed you, the sun, creates vitamin D in the body. It creates serotonin. It creates this thing called, there's this something in your body, a fourth phase of water called it's easy water. It's, I think forget what it stands for, the something zone, but it's like a crystalline jelly. And negative electrons are on one side and positive are on the other. And this is actually like a battery in our body. And so as we're getting closer to the galactic sun, we're being washed with these waves of light and that are waking up our crystalline DNA and activating our pineal gland. The spine is actually, this is something I wanted to share about because it's just fun.
Yeah.
You know, the Jedi was an actual thing. That was something from Kemet. And the lightsaber is your spine, right? This is the power cord, the main power cord for the energy to flow through you, right? And this pulse of life, this life-giving force, you know, the force. So we're actually Jedi reawakening.
And the force is with you.
Yeah. And with you and with everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Wow.
As the light washes in, and similar to that, you know, metaphor of the butterfly in the chrysalis, they say if they have ultra sensitive like sonic equipment that you can listen to the butterfly in the chrysalis, and it's screaming as it destroys itself in acid, and then it comes out this transformed being. And if you look at the world, you know, a lot of people could look at the world and be like, oh man, this is terrible. You know, there's the social architects, you know, there's the thing in Ukraine, there's the, you know, the system and the matrix and, you know, the technocracy and all these things. And it's like, I think this is the acid actually, as we're like transforming into this higher vibration, higher potential that we are. So it's really the juiciest time to be alive in a lot of ways, you know, and that we get to bear witness to this transformation.
I love that, Jesse. The juiciest time.
So many people juicing. Yeah. And I mean, that's a sign to me too. It's like, you know, as a child of the 80s and, you know, growing up in the 80s, you know, you didn't hear about people, you know, fasting and juicing and doing yoga and like making copper pyramids and working with crystals and all. Now this stuff is like very popular, you know, very widespread because we understand on a level that is beyond our rational thinking, you know. Because we are all connected to this God consciousness that flows through us. That I think that's what the electricity is actually, is consciousness itself. So as we develop the electricity in our body, it's developing our consciousness. You know?
Wow. Yeah, like God consciousness, like God flowing through you. I remember hearing, you know, what is Paramahansa Yogananda in that book, Autobiography of a Yogi. There's a lot of talk like that, you know, about the electrical that goes up and down the spine. And I love your analogy about that, Jesse, when you talked about the lightsaber, because even in the formation of the lightsaber, because each Jedi has to construct, you know, when they're a Padawan and they're going through their Jedi training, they're tasked to go out and find a crystal in some cave somewhere, and they use that crystal as the crux or as the core of their lightsaber, and that crystal charges the light that emits from the saber, you know. So us being crystalline beings, you know, crystalline beings, like you were saying, we're like crystals and we're charging that saber. That makes so much sense, you know.
That's the Christ, right? Christ all. We're all Christ in that sense. And yeah, your skeleton is piezoelectric and pyroelectric, and it's a conductor, a semiconductor, a superconductor, and a resonator.
Whew.
You know.
Whew. Say that again. Can you say that again?
Your skeleton is a conductor, a semiconductor, a superconductor, and a resonator. It's a carbon silica crystal that, like, if you take two quartz rocks at night and you should check it out. It's pretty neat. We have a lot of quartz crystals in the desert, a lot of the rocks out here. So you can just take a couple and at night you bang them around and they spark and it's actually energy. And that's why quartz crystal is used for timepieces. Nothing else will keep time, actually. You know. So this is, oh, I see Brother Kazu here too. This is our nature, that we are Christ beings. We are crystals of energy, you know. And so it's that's what this lifestyle is about, is bringing this into realization. You know, it's happening anyways, but it's whether or not you get to experience it, kind of, you know.
Yeah. And even as it's happening, you know, folks like you, Jesse, who are getting the message out there, holding space for other people's stories and allowing these stories to be told, this is all part of it, you know? This is all part of that, yeah, for that awakening in the grand scheme of things for everyone, you know, all around the world. So people can even, you know, anybody who's watching this, not only right now, but even on the replay, this is there, that energy is there, the energy that you're putting into this, the knowledge and wisdom from your own experience and expertise that you're infusing into this, it's just able to spread and cause ripples around the whole world. You never know where that energy stops. You know, it doesn't stop, it keeps going. It just keeps going. So thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's such my pleasure. Honestly, I mean, this, like, I really feel that this is a heaven realm, but it's up to us to, as gods in a heaven realm, we can create whatever we want, you know. So we've been creating sort of an experience for contrast, you know, so we can come to appreciate what a joyful life this really is. All these wonderful beings, you know, all these wonderful friends we can meet, all these beautiful plants and flowers, you know. It's, you know, all for our enjoyment, you know. And it's that mentality. We have to grow that mentality. And thank you for saying what you said. You know, oftentimes I just feel like I'm just, you know, kind of a quiet voice out here. There's big voices like Devon and, you know, people out there, you know, who are making big waves. But I like what Gandhi says. He says, what you do may seem insignificant, but it's significant that you do it.
Ooh. Yes. Yes.
And what you do is also spreading great light, brother. I appreciate love. I appreciate love.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah, so I see there's quite a few other Breatharian people that I know here. The guy Kazu, you know, he and I have great talks about all this kind of stuff. And have you ever listened to any of Master of Earth and his teaching?
Yeah. Master, he had so many YouTube videos back in the day. I haven't heard anything else from him in years. It's been years. Yeah.
Yeah. He kind of disappeared, you know, but man, he had a lot of great wisdom to share. And this stuff about the Jedi. Have you ever heard any of the teachings of Seven Bomar?
No, I haven't. No.
I think you'd like him, brother. Check him out.
Okay.
He's really pretty amazing with what he shares too. And, you know, it's just this consciousness growing, and, you know, the more we share it and spread it around, it's, you know, it's good vibes. Just build. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So I love
so many different. I remember Master of Earth was talking about, you know, he talked about grounding. He talked about different yogic postures, different positions, hugging trees, sexual energy, even urine therapy. He talked about, like, he touched on so many things. And, you know, the waves that he created are still rippling today. You know, that's a significant energy imprint, and we're all playing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Got to give thanks to him. I'm pretty sure he was a Lequitarian because he talked about like the dehydration epidemic, you know, because most of the foods that people eat, like there's stuff like plastic, you know, there's, you know, things that are plasticizing and to uh, you know, digest sound, light, you know, color, um, and liquids much more than these like solid masses that then, you know, confine that root chakra. And, you know, like the lightsaber, you know, when they flick the lightsaber, it goes,
Mm-hmm.
Ellie talks about, you know, the Kundalini falls upward, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when that is all plugged up, then the Kundalini is frustrated trying to crawl up your spine,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I think, I mean, that was my experience. You know, I think I was like pretty hyper acidic before I moved to raw foods and got back into breath work.
Yeah.
Because I had, you know, I'd have these feelings of frustration and I wouldn't know where they were coming from. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't find their source and be like,
Yeah.
why am I so irate? I used to be happy, you know, and then, you know, as I went further down this path, it was like opening up. And I remember when I first, because Ellie Tom came and taught with me here at a certain point, and he dropped me so many nuggets in that time. And I just remember as I moved into liquiditarianism, having that sense again of feeling like a baby, where you know, diaphragmatic breathing becomes more simplistic. It's more natural when you're not full, you
Right.
know. And you know, the autotoxicity that happens, you know, in the cells, even if you're eating good foods, excess proteins and carbohydrates and oils and all those things will turn into rancid fats and you know, toxic things. So, you know, fasting was in all of our, you know, past, in that, you know, people living connected with nature. Like these days, you can go any time of the day to somewhere and get food, you know, and most people overeat, you know, like Gandhi would say, you know, eat no more than can fit in your hands, you know, and it's like, you know, you see these portions that are like enormous, you know, and it's gluttonous, really, um, and only in the sense that it keeps your vibration down and keeps the Kundalini energy from being able to rise, you know. So it's really more about this natural effortlessness, you know. And a lot of the yogis say the only thing to master is master how to relax.
Huh. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I like how Janet says she breathes so much better on liquids. Yeah. You know, it's easier to relax with less. It's like we always say, you hear the saying, less is more, you know? But when you really put that saying to the test, could less be more? Yeah. And I like how you pointed out as well what can fit in your hands. Because how big do they even say the stomach is?
it's, yeah, I think it's your two hands together like this.
That's a big stomach. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
that would make sense. Yeah.
yeah, and you'd say you should eat to like 80%, you know, 70 or 80% full, you know. Um, but we'll eat till we're, you know, Christmas dinner and we're like, whoa, and you go into like, you know, the comatose on the couch, you know.
Right.
And it's like that energy is depleted. Like you get that immediate, I think everyone has had that experience where they went to a big feast and the next thing you do is you just sleep.
You're
You know?
done. You're out. You know, it's like a sedative. Like you put yourself under. You know. Yeah. Yeah. And I like how you said, Jesse, when it comes to not just what we eat, but how much we eat. You know, the window of consumption, the rate of consumption. Because if we're eating at all hours of the day, not even giving the system a break, you know, we're eating what, the 3 meals a day plus snacks in between.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
I was expecting myself to feel good, to feel happy. I was wondering the same thing you were wondering. Never once putting the things together, never once drawing that connection between the way that I was feeling, my emotions, and what I was putting in my body, you know? Never understood that the power was always in my hands. Nobody had forced me to, you know, put the forkfuls of pastas and spaghettis and fettuccinis and, you know, linguinis in my mouth. That was me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta admit, I mean, I love food. You know, it's kind of a thing. Do you know Perry,
You
Plant
talking about,
Master?
yeah, Mowgli too. He goes by Mowgli as well. Yeah, Perry.
Yeah, yeah. We were talking about it a little bit because, you know, I've been a liquiditarian now for 4.5 years, you know, and I hate to say it, but sometimes juice gets boring. You know what I mean? And we were talking about it, and you know, he just did like a 9-day dry fast, and he's like been liquiditarian ever since, and you know, he heard my interview with Ellie Tom and Shayna where we were talking about, you know, if you're interested in this lifestyle, you want to move into it gently and
Yeah.
slowly,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and you can actually hurt yourself and even die if you're not careful, you know, with this. But you know, he advised me at a certain point to eat once a week with my family, you know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and that on the one hand helped me feel more connected with them because, you know, that's a big reason why this is medicine for me, to connect with you and, you know, Kazu and Perry and Axel and, you know, other breatharians on the path, because it you feel kind of lonely because everybody else is just, you know, eating whatever, you know. But it also helped me, like, in terms of like, I got to try things that I still wanted, you know.
Right.
And so now, after 4.5 years of breatharianism, I'm entertaining trying to eat a little bit here
Yeah.
and there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and yesterday I had a couple of jicama fries. It was like 3 jicama fries. They were tiny, and I was like, oh. And that's a further, like, you know, motivation to move further into this lifestyle, you know, and it's, you know, higher energy.
Mhm.
But so I don't know how much I'm going to be actually able to eat of solid things, but I am kind of called to it at this time, even after being liquiditarian for 4.5 years, because that is part of this. The joy of this planet is, like, you know, there's so much to experience in so many ways, and I feel like that's, like, we're moving out of the age of Pisces, you know, and into the age of Aquarius. And the Piscean age was all, you know, like sacrifice and, you know, martyrdom and um, you know, like, I'm not gonna have sex, I'm not gonna, you know, I'm gonna fast, I'm gonna, you know, and all those things are worthy and high, you know, but it's more about, and that was always the thing for me with moving into raw food. Think of it more as adding to your life, not taking away, you know.
Mhm.
So adding more fresh fruits and veggies into your diet, you know, adding the practice of fasting, adding the practice of meditation, you know, and that these
Yeah.
things raise vibration in a different, you get different benefit. Like, you may be seemingly sacrificing this thing, but you're getting this thing, you know.
Exactly. 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 Then you don't feel like you're depriving yourself of anything because you're complete. You're whole. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I love that.
So, and that's our natural state. I truly believe that we're all, you know, uh, this is actually a self-organizing energy field, this body. And same as the planet. Like, you don't see the planet eating stuff from outside. It eats sunlight, right? Sunlight hits the planet, and it causes this life to explode, right? This is the same thing with us. we're just a fractal of the planet, and that if we start to understand, that's where meditation is the key, most fundamental thing. That actually every one of if you took one of your atoms and split it, it would be a cataclysmic explosion. There's so much energy inside of you. So all that energy is just always there, and it's just, we have to move our consciousness there slowly, so it's not too much too fast for the vessel. And you have to prepare the vessel through these things, through proper diet. Herbs have been massive help. And so not to think of it just in terms of like, I'm just going to fast my way there or something.
Oh yeah, because that backfires quickly.
Yeah.
Because like and because you learned from Ellie Tom as well, he always talks about how fasting is one thing while pranic living is another. They're two, they're similar, but they're different. Yeah. So
yeah, I think of it in terms of, like, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Marshall. I think of it in terms of, that was something that he told to me, is that there's basically all these practices that you do that lead to the potential to not needing to eat. But really the object is to develop, the energy in the body, the consciousness, the happiness, So, there's, sexual temperance, there's fasting, but on the other side of that is your diet, So fasting and refeeding on high vibrational foods, biophotonic foods, and foods that are full of liquid, so that, this, cleanses the cells and suffuses them with more nutrients, so they're more electric. Meditation and breath work, and how breathing actually creates electricity in the body. All these things you're just basically stacking health. It's like biohacking, where you're stacking all these different health things on top of each other for explosive, expansive health.
Yeah, call it health stacking. I like that. Your health. and go ahead.
No, after you. I didn't have anything.
Yeah. So what I love about that too is also when you implement exercise. That's a whole nother health stack. On top of on top of the fasting, on top of the diet, on top of the conscious eating, when you put exercise on top of that, oh man, it takes it to a whole new level. And then when you stack on being in nature, you health stack that. That's a whole new level. Being connected to that solar energy, connected to being grounded, picking up the negative ions, and not just with the photonic life, but that human photosynthesis that we're talking about. So when I hear these talks, and I love to think of the body as healthy by nature, because we are nature. So it's its constitution to be healthy if we don't get in the way of a natural process. So when I think of like juicing, for me, I think of, okay, it's not necessarily detoxing my body, but it's not getting in the way of what my body can do on its own. The body doesn't I help to do what it does, but so many times I've gotten in the way of it doing what it does. It's letting me know, hey, move out the way. We got this. I got you. I can do it. Believe in me, right? The body's like, believe, Jerome, believe, So many times I didn't trust my own body to have its own intelligence, to know that it can do these things on its own. And when you start to trust yourself more, you become your own friend again. You learn how to do relationship with yourself in new ways. And oh man, it can be transformative. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's totally beautiful. I feel like you hit on something really important there. I feel like sort of, like the Judeo-Christian, I don't know where it stems from, but I feel like it's there in a lot of the Judeo-Christian, like underpinnings of our society. And I feel both of those are profound mystical systems of thought and philosophy. But there's also like this kind of sense of like, we are of God and of spirit and heaven, and everything here on earth is lowly and base and kind of the devil, like, you know, your sexual function and all of these things like are shameful, you know, and really that's the opposite, you know. This is this is, I'm looking at spirit, you know, right now. This is the house for spirit, you know. And it's the consciousness, the electricity. I really think consciousness is this electricity and energy, and so it has to have a house. It has to have, you know, some containment, you know, something to flow through, right? Just like electricity won't flow unless you have, you know, the connection, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, seeing our bodies as holy, seeing it as actually this crystalline spirit essence. I don't know how else to put it, you know, but just that to honor the body, that most of your consciousness is actually below the neck, you know.
Wow, that level of reverence. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, and loving our body into this place. I think it's like, I really like, you know, Thai culture. They'll, you know, I think what they do, I think it's like they should do body work or hot spring or something like once a week, you know, at least like get into self-care practice. Like I think this also comes maybe from the Judeo-Christian, or it's just this social archetypes version of it, of like, if you're, you know, doing these kind of things, lavishing yourself in this way, that's selfish, you know. But self-care and self-love is the only way we can actually learn to care and love for others in this world. Because if we're hard on ourselves, that translates to everything else, you know. But if we're loving to ourselves, similarly, it translates and it expands. So it's a beautiful life. We're all blessed to be here.
Yeah. A beautiful life. A beautiful.
Yes, God. Oh, Buddha. Everyone.
Shout out to Luisa as well. We're joined by Luisa from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Shout out to Luisa. Much love. And love what she said, learning to love and be love, opening gates to love. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's our true nature. That's what I know, that's what I'm here for. You know, experience and express and you know, be in love with this world and this life and all the people. There's so many beautiful people in this world. I'm now seeing all the comments. Hi guys, hi.
It's a lot. There's a lot going on in here. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of good people vibing with us today. What a wonderful thing.
Most definitely. So yeah, thank you for, you know, having a container for this kind of love to be filled, you know, and for filling up your cup. Yeah.
My pleasure. I mean, that was my experiences, you know, and I, you know, would suggest this to everyone, you know, pour love into yourself. Like, this is your greatest investment. And once it fills, it can't help but overflow. So thank you again for joining me. I want to respect your time. And I don't know if you have anything else you want to add, but it was a really beautiful pleasure to be with you, Jerome. And I appreciate your heart and spirit. And I look forward to more talks and growing this Sangha and this vibration of loving kindness and freedom and joy.
Definitely. We will. Yes. And thank you to everyone who joined. We appreciate you. Much love to you. And keep going, keep growing, keep flowing. You know, keep that electricity alive. Keep that fire burning and yearning within you. Thank you.
Yeah. Can't help but grow in the light.